Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money Channel. All right, so I got a pretty special show for you guys today. We are going to go over some old Martin Armstrong clips. I've talked about this guy over the years, and I've done a few videos regarding Martin Armstrong and his global economic predictions, his AI software model Socrates, and guys, what it means for the world in the coming years. Now, a lot of these videos I did a few years back, and so I wanted to kind of address some of the topics that we discussed way back in, I think I started these in 2020. I'm going to let this next video introduce Martin Armstrong if you're not familiar with him, and if you have not seen his documentary. Without further ado, listen to this. Now, I'm going to switch gears for a quick moment here, and it might seem a little random right now, but guys, have you seen this movie, The Forecaster? Okay, so I saw this on the weekend. This is a documentary about this guy, Martin Armstrong, who created a system, an AI, that could basically predict accurately, by the way, to the day in some cases, market reversals based on a multitude of aggregated data that was implemented into the AI system. Now, it was so accurate, scary in fact, that the US government actually tried to get it from him and he refused to give it to them. He was thrown in jail for 7 years. This is an insane documentary. He's out of jail now and sells his services online. So let me just back up for a quick second. The amount of data that he was inputting into this system was spanning hundreds of years of currency data, stock market data. He also implemented what was happening with wars around the world, okay, for as long as basically time was recorded, hundreds and hundreds of years. So this is how arguably he was getting such an accurate representation. And he was saying the world moves in cycles, and this is why he was able to predict things such as the market crash in 1987. He was doing this in the 80s, by the way, and he predicted it in 1980. He was predicting that the market would crash in 1987, and sure enough, it did. Another thing that he mentions in this documentary that he predicted, there was a war in Lebanon, and he predicted it that it would be happening in 8 days, and sure enough, it did happen 8 days later. This documentary is insane. So if you guys are interested in this kind of thing, I definitely recommend you see this. But I had to mention this, guys, because Martin Armstrong just released a video on September 9th, 2020, and you know what he has to say about the state of the world we're living in right now? I want to play this clip for you guys because I think this is very important.
This is what the civil unrest is about. From our model standpoint, we focus on the economy side. The more you turn the economy down, the more frustration people are going to have for a variety of reasons. All right. And so they're going to start attending more, protests for lockdowns or whatever the issue is. And they may be there for many different reasons. All right. But they're together, they're in a group. This is what civil unrest is rising, and it's going to continue to rise going into 2022. Because these people that have been orchestrating and manipulating this COVID pandemic, what we're looking at is basically their attempt to destroy the economy so they can rebuild it with this great reset the World Economic Forum is pushing.
Wait a minute. What? Martin Armstrong, guys, just stated it. First of all, he mentions the year 2022, going into 2022. This is what his model is predicting, by the way. It's called Ask Socrates as a side note. But he's saying this is going to continue into 2022 because the World Economic Forum is pushing a great reset. That's right. The same World Economic Forum that names XRP as a crypto asset most relevant in the central bank digital currency space. It is no coincidence that the ISO 20022 standard is going to be off and running by 2022, and we're going to see what happens from then on out, but I think that 2022 is going to be a pivotal year, guys. It seems like everything is aligning, and I know it seems far off, but realistically, how fast did 2020 go by? We were locked down in our homes for most of the year, and it seems like 2020 just flew by. It seems like March was just yesterday. Guys, if you haven't seen this documentary, I really do suggest you watch it. Martin Armstrong, a really intelligent guy. He was put in jail because his AI technology was so accurate. That is how much credibility this guy has. I just wanted to play you one more clip from this video. It's right over here. Let me just play you this real quick.
Bricks at them. So our model is slightly different. It shows the origin rather than the end game. So this is what Socrates is forecasting, that There is clearly a risk of rising civil unrest. And then, unfortunately, it also is warning about international war. And that comes into play with these people that are trying to create this great reset. They can't create a great reset without also subjugating Russia and China. And that's just not going to happen.
Oh. So he's even talking about war, guys, a potential war, because this great reset is not going to happen without a fight. So I want to just remind you that Martin Armstrong was talking about this in the year 2020, and he was forecasting 2022. What happened in 2022? Of course, there was the Russia-Ukraine scenario that did begin. He didn't actually mention Ripple or XRP, but he did mention the World Economic Forum several times and how they are, how they're angling to create a new financial system. Of course, we know Ripple is one of the World Economic Forum partners. Now, fast forward to 2025, guys, we are looking down the barrel of tokenizing everything. You know, all the videos that I've done over the last year or two, we've talked about RWAs, tokenization, how all these companies are now partnering with Ripple, how BlackRock and all the major companies are getting on board with tokenization and crypto assets. Remember, tokenization is essentially just a euphemism for you will own nothing and you will be happy. Let's fast forward to 2025 for a bit. And Versan actually just recently interviewed Martin Armstrong. Versan asked point blank about XRP, central banks, how Basel III is interconnected with this and how this new financial system is going to function. Martin Armstrong does talk a little bit about the IMF and how they play a role in this. Listen to this.
But we know for a fact that central banks are already using Ripple's technology at the high levels. It's being leveraged by multiple central banks. And I know I talk to you quite often about this, but I think that, the XRP aligns with some of the Basel III requirements for central banks to hold those adequate gold reserves, which also aligns with the need for a reserve asset like XRP. Rick Rule was on my show once. He confirmed, who subscribed to the Bank for International Settlements, their own interest in the digital asset XRP. So I think in a long-term strategy, whether this is sooner or later, I think that gold is actually being positioned globally as the reserve asset for the new monetary framework, whatever that may look like. And I think XRP will be a global settlement currency that represents that new system. And if you look from the financial landscape, I see all the pieces kind of falling into place. Now, I know that sounds a bit far out there, but what are your thoughts on some of what I said there?
Well, it's a question of power. And I can tell you that the IMF has already created their own digital coin. Mm-hmm. And they have been pitching that they should replace the dollar as reserve currency. But that's part of this whole globalist agenda. To some, I think that the what you're proposing is possible without war. But these people seem to want war, and if that comes first, which may be likely, the revision of the world monetary system comes later.
Yes.
So essentially what he's saying is we're going to see war first, then the revision of the monetary system coming second. Now, it's interesting that he says the IMF has created their own coin and they want to essentially debase the US dollar as that global reserve currency. Of course, Ripple has come out with the RLUSD recently. This is the United States' way of trying to preserve US dollar dominance around the globe. So some things have shifted a little bit. Interesting that Martin Armstrong does talk about the IMF and their plans to debase the US dollar. Let's go back a few years, guys, to another video I did. This one was, according to Martin Armstrong, XRP will terminate all private cryptocurrencies. Now, again, I did this several years ago, February 20th, 2021. There's some interesting points in this that I wanted to bring up, and I kind of wanted to revise today in 2025. Listen to this. And he has this website here called Armstrong Economics. I will link this in the description of the video. And guys, here's what he wrote. There was a question asked to him by, I guess, one of his subscribers, and he posted the answer on his website just yesterday with regards to XRP. So the question was, I wonder if you can comment on the potential of the SWIFT system being replaced by Ripple Labs XRP as a bridging currency between currency pairs, making use of their patented on-demand liquidity system. If this is the case, then it would appear that the USD is set up to be replaced as the world reserve currency, commodities being priced in local currency. The IMF has stated they want to renegotiate the Bretton Woods Agreement. Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, said that in 2019 Jackson Hole meeting that the USD is too dominant and proposed it to be replaced by a green cryptocurrency such as XRP. The World Economic Forum is touting Ripple Labs' platform as the future. Without going full conspiracy theory on this, it would seem plausible that something like this is in the offing. The SEC lawsuit against Ripple seems a little sinister given the DOJ already found XRP to be a digital asset, not a security, and has the potential to push Ripple offshore to a more friendly jurisdiction, which the globalists would love. I'm rambling, I'm sorry. However, could you speak to the SWIFT system and the potential replacement and any other topic I've touched on if you have the time or inclination even to dismiss? Thanks. Martin, you were born to live through this moment. Kind regards, TL. And so Martin Armstrong does in fact respond to this. What he says is XRP is a digital asset built for payments. It is the native digital asset on the XRP ledger, an open source, permissionless, and decentralized blockchain technology that can settle transactions in 3 to 5 seconds, as we know. The reason these people are pushing this is not about the dollar. It is to end paper money. They are forced to realize that Keynesian economics failed as a solution to 6 years of quantitative easing, unable to stimulate the economy. They concluded it was not the theory, but for us, as always, as people hoarded their cash instead of spending, they caused the velocity of money to decline. Hence, the need to end paper money to prevent hoarding, but to do so, they need an instant clearing of digital currency. Make no mistake, and guys, this is a quote from Martin Armstrong himself. Make no mistake about it, XRP will also terminate all private cryptocurrencies. Either Mark Carney and the IMF are completely ignorant as to why the dollar is the reserve currency that nobody else can displace, or they are deliberately hiding the truth, which is a major default on world sovereign debt. The dollar is the reserve currency for 3 primary reasons. The US dollar, so number 1, the US dollar has no restrictions and anyone can issue debt in dollars without controls. Number 2, the US dollar has never been canceled. And number 3, the US economy is the world's largest economy with the core consumer market to which the world sells. So it continues on down here. Europe routinely cancels its currencies, which introduces risk, which prevents it from being used internationally in physical form. While they have not canceled the 500 euro note, few people will accept them for fear of being canceled. Even India has canceled high-end notes, which I have from the last time I went to India to meet with our institutional clients there. Only the dollar remains legal tender since 1861, and Trudeau had passed a law in Canada withdrawing the legal status or the legal tender status of some notes by January 1st, 2021, which now allows him to cancel all paper money at his pleasure. So that just happened in Canada, guys. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has the ability to cancel any physical cash note that he wants. I mean, realistically, you're not going to cancel 5s and 10s and 20s and 50s, but he could, for example, cancel the $100 note, boom, like that. And the people wouldn't be able to say anything about it. So Canada dollars now have the risk of cancellation as of January 1st, 2021. Note that prior to World War I, most bonds issued by foreign countries used in another country's currency involved the British pound, which was the reserve currency prior to World War I. After that, it was the dollar and rose to the status of a reserve currency when Europe decided to blow each other up. While Germany may be the biggest economy in Europe, the mercantile economic policy and high taxes in fear of hyperinflation since World War II has rendered the Germans near the bottom of the wealth list among the EU. The significance of this is very important. It means that Germany did not develop the same robust economy based upon consumer demand. They relied upon selling things to other countries, which was why Kohl was pushing for a single currency to enable Germany to sell even more to the rest of Europe by reducing currency risk. What does this have to do with XRP? Let me continue. Pricing commodities in this XRP will by no means eliminate the dollar as the reserve currency. However, it would require the United States to terminate the dollar and accept XRP. Otherwise, all that will happen is introduce greater volatility, forcing American companies into hedging FX risk between the dollar and XRP. For years, all we ever heard was if they price oil in the euro, that will kill the dollar. These people just totally fail to grasp the complexity behind even what makes a currency. Then we have heard how the dollar will crumble to ashes because of debt. Yet, total sovereign world debt is nearing $200 trillion, and the USA is just under 15% of that. These people have no idea of what they are talking about. Other nations are in far worse shape, not because of debt to GDP, but because they lack the underlying consumer-based economy, which is why China is diligently following the US model and not that of Germany. So he brings in China to this, guys. Think about it. China, clearly very aware of what's going on here, of what model works when it comes to being a dominant powerhouse economically around the world, following the US model. And we also heard, I don't know if you guys caught that video with Gene Simmons on that podcast with Dustin Plantholt, guys. I'll link it up here in the top right-hand corner. If you didn't see my video on that, Gene Simmons directly accusing essentially China being the reason, in other words, for the Ripple lawsuit in the United States. An interesting connection there. So they have turned inwards and are moving to generate the world's largest consumer-based economy, which is why they will surpass the United States, which is being taken over by the same European Marxist agenda, which has regulated Europe to a third world status. The top 10 economies in the world only include 3 EU countries, plus the UK in nominal terms: Canada, China, Japan, Germany, India, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Brazil, and Canada. If we measure these economies accounting for purchasing power parity, which is PPP for short, exchange rates, which relate the exchange rate between currencies to consumer price levels, the picture changes. China, the world's largest economy since 2017 in PPP terms, according to estimates by the World Bank, which uses international dollars to make comparisons among countries. This introduces FX risk. Therefore, in PPP terms, the US is second with about 15.8% of the world GDP. The European Union was in third place, contributing $19.9 trillion, or 15.3% of world GDP. So circling back to XRP, guys, therefore, the push behind XRP requires 5G communication speed to be able to instantly clear transactions. Without that, you cannot replace paper currency. So he's talking about the technology here, and I know we've done videos in the past talking about 5G and the controversy behind that, but he's saying XRP requires this for instant clear transactions. Without that, you cannot replace paper currency. Consequently, the only way to move to electronic money in order to eliminate non-taxable hidden cash and the underground economy is to move towards a digital world. In the United States in 2020, it is estimated that the underground economy is about 11 or 12% of US GDP, or roughly $2.5 trillion total. Politicians look at this and see dollar sign visions in their heads. Politicians blame their fiscal mismanagement and their political failures never on themselves, but always on we, the great unwashed, who are never trustworthy, so on and so forth. He goes on a little bit about that, and people avoiding taxes. Let me just move down here real quick. Hence, XRP is primarily for that purpose, to eliminate the underground economy. And so the ultimate takeaway here, XRP going to be utilized in this financial system. It is about governments being able to track more transactions. So first and foremost, eliminating the underground economy, which we've also heard American politicians talk about. Well, cryptocurrency is used for crime and illicit activity and all that stuff. But they never talk about XRP and all the benefits. We know, because we do our research, that this is the kind of utility that's going to derive from XRP. Also, the fact that XRP will likely make private cryptocurrencies obsolete is another interesting point here that Mark Armstrong mentions. XRP will also terminate all private cryptocurrency. And I got to say, that was an interesting perspective all the way back then in 2021. Fast forward again to 2025, and we have the RLUSD. So in a sense, it wasn't XRP, but you know what? Legislation went a bit differently, and the world took a bit of a pivot. The United States is now legislating stablecoin usage. Ultimately, though, I don't think Martin Armstrong is too far off. He pretty much nailed 2022 being the beginning of that next stage of the Great Reset. And we're coming very close, guys, to a world where tokenization is going to be the norm. We have to make sure we are on the right side of history, make sure we hedge our bets, make sure we invest in the right cryptocurrencies, the ones that are going to solve problems, the ones that are going to appreciate and see true price discovery down the road for real reasons, real world utility. These are the coins that are going to solve problems. That's just my opinion. And if you guys want to hear more opinions on how I think this market's going to roll in a spec run, and if you want to contrast that opinion with some thoughts I have about real world utility down the road, you guys should follow the Patreon. It is only $5 a month. Patreon.com/Working Money Channel. I also just wanted to mention that I have the Working Money Channel merch store. Link is in the description of the video if you guys are interested in purchasing some Working Money Channel merch. That's just my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.